Reclaim is a podcast for women, by women, on conversations that matter, with your host, Thais Sky. Together, we will explore the questions of what does it look like to reclaim our sovereignty, our worthiness, our voices as women in this messy world. No topics are barred as we offer roundtable discussions on life, spirituality, politics, and what it means to be a woman in the modern age. Let's do this. All right. Hello, everybody. Thais Sky here. Welcome to Reclaim the podcast. I am your host, and today I have my recurring guest, dear friend, and currently grad school colleague, cohort colleague person, Lindsey motherfucking Ray.
Woo! Hey, everyone.
This is our first time recording a podcast together since we started grad school together.
We're such little geeky students.
And we are with our little book bags.
Oh my God, we love it so much.
We love it so much.
We're actually a little ridiculous, but it's okay.
We're having a great time and we're learning a lot.
Like already.
Yeah, it's
which
good.
Is crazy.
It's good. We have a lot of work, a lot of homework, a lot of things to...
Oh my gosh, I just said crazy. Did you hear that? It fell out of my mouth, and I've been so good about it.
Lindsey and I are clear that we have been speaking some ableist language, like saying, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Like,
or that's
oh my
insane.
gosh, you're being so insane.
But insane, crazy, these are very ableist words, and we need to do better.
Yes, and so we're
catching ourselves,
and we're also keeping each other accountable and kind of calling each other out when we catch it.
It's so hard because we're so used to hearing it.
I know, but now,
yeah,
what am I using? I'm using wild.
Yeah.
And I'm using,
exciting.
Yeah, wild is a good one for me because wild, I feel like it's the kind of the same connotation that I'm trying to deliver.
Which it's even better than crazy or insane.
It is. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so wild. You're being so wild. Like
unruly.
Oh my gosh, that's
unbridled.
So wild. So wild. Or like, one of my favorite things to say, and I know this sounds so bad.
I was going to say, are you about to say it sounds so crazy? You didn't say that.
I didn't, well, because I'm getting ready to say, I would always say, oh, like, I have a one-way ticket to Crazy Town.
You have a one-way ticket to Wildville.
Wildville is
Wildville.
the new one. We talked about this on our walk to brunch, on our morning walk.
Yeah, we're having good days so far. Okay, but we are here with a very specific intention.
Yes.
The topic of this podcast episode is I'm waking up to my white privilege, now what? Mm-hmm. A conversation to white spiritual women on racism and waking up to white supremacy.
And we have a lot of almost disclaimers.
We do.
First.
We have a lot of disclaimers to share. Because it's important that we really create proper boundaries and context for this conversation.
And that we're super transparent about
absolutely
the fact that we are not experts here.
Yeah, that's the first disclaimer. Lindsey and I are not social justice educators. We are not anti-racism educators. We are not educators in any capacity around these conversations.
Yes, this is a question that we ask ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
Daily, like regularly.
Yeah. So what we're sharing with you is not some framework. I will be offering resources in the show notes for you of people who are educators and who are doing this work professionally and who desperately needs to be compensated for the work that they are doing because it's such good, important work. So that will be in the show notes. But this conversation is from the context of two white women who have spent the past year and a half doing deep exploration into our own whiteness, and we want
and
to
are still doing it
forever.
Right.
And we want to share with you vulnerably what we've learned, our experiences, and ways that we wish we would have done better, so that maybe as you're awakening to your whiteness, you can use our lessons to guide you and support you on your journey.
Right, because this is how we all learn, right? We all learn through our own experiential process, but we all also look to others' experience to, just gather information and knowledge.
Yeah. What's also important to note is that, of course, this conversation and all the conversations that Lindsey and I have had on this podcast is messy.
Really messy.
And we make mistakes and we say things incorrectly. And I'm sure if I listen to our first episode that we released back in October, there's probably so many things that we're like, oh, I really, not quite right.
And that's also like highlighting how vulnerable it is to really just kind of put yourself out in this public way.
Yeah.
And have these messy, uncomfortable discussions, because anyone at any point could go back to any one of these episodes, pull things,
yes,
and say, oh, this, and that. And it doesn't matter that it might have been even a year ago.
Yeah.
You know? So it's always out there.
Yes.
So that it's scary.
It is scary.
You know?
But Lindsey and I are committed to doing this work. And because we're both public figures, we're committed to doing this work out loud. And because I teach self-expression and I teach about the worthiness wound, and these are things that require us to look at our whiteness as part of the complex spectrum of conversations of how do we become better humans for ourselves and for other people. This is a conversation that I'm committed to having daily. And so what we're sharing here with you is something, it's like a peek into what Lindsey and I would normally be talking about, like most of our podcast episodes.
And like every day of our lives.
But while it is messy, we also do know what the fuck we're talking about.
I think so.
We have a pretty good foundation of knowledge, both theoretical and practical, around this stuff. So yes, it's messy. Yes, it's imperfect. And we're pretty good. We're pretty good at having this conversation.
I think so. And we're also really good at holding each other.
Yes.
In it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's, you know, it's so funny because, like, obviously we can look to other kind of teachers and more frivolous things like, oh, you know, get yourself a spiritual running buddy to remind you of did you do your affirmations this morning? You know? But we can take kind of like that system and make it work for like all the other real work too. So get in real conversation with a friend that can hold that.
Yes.
You know?
We're very lucky that we have each other, I have to say.
Yeah, and that we've got a pretty decent group of people that we actually have these conversations with quite regularly. So, maybe not as much as we have them.
Yeah.
But
well, here's the deal. And so, okay, so let's actually just get right in, because this will unfold as we get right in. Okay, so you maybe you're in a space where you're starting to notice some changes in the self-development coaching world. You're starting to notice people are talking about things that are bigger than just self-development, things in the political spectrum. Maybe you're starting to see how your work has been extremely limiting because it has not included context like what's happening in the country. Maybe when you're noticing these conversations online, you start to notice that the majority of your friends are white, or the majority of the people that are in your group are white, or the majority of the people that you follow are white, the majority of the people on your newsfeed are white, the majority of the books that you read are white, the majority of TV shows you watch are white.
Everyone looks just like you.
Right. So maybe that's where you're at, where you're starting to awaken. You're developing this awareness of, oh, wait a minute. Racism is a conversation that needs to be had. But I'm a white woman and I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do now. I know that this is a problem. I know that I've seen white women, maybe you've seen them being called out for being culturally appropriative or being harmful or cultivating violence in their feed. Maybe you start to notice some summits being called out for being predominantly white or tokenizing the women of color that are on the summits. So this
Should we say what tokenizing means?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we will. So maybe this is where you're at, okay? And if this is where you're at, this podcast episode is for you, because what we want to offer you is some guidelines and some things to be considering as you're moving forward from this point. Because the reason why we're doing this is because your silence is complicit. Right? So you can peek in, you can notice, right? You're peeking in, you're noticing the problem. If you decide to step back, close your eyes to what's happening, you're participating in upholding a system that's deeply, deeply harmful.
And in some more extreme views, you're also perpetuating the violence towards people of color.
Yes. So this is why this conversation is important, because it's kind of like the spiritual awakening. When you've had the spiritual awakening and you're starting to realize that there's a universal force out there, it's very hard for you to go back, but it is possible. People do it all the time. Like, too uncomfortable, I'm pulling back. And maybe that was also you. And you start to recognize that pulling back and constricting after you've experienced something so majestic and expansive is not only painful for your soul, but it also holds you back from so much possibility and so much growth and so much amazing experiences that you could be having. It's the same thing here. You're awakening to something new. There is that propensity to pull back, to be quiet, to not look, to dip the toe in. And what we're inviting you here is that don't dip in. Don't dip and dip out. Really commit yourself into this work. Because not only is this the work that will transform your relationship with yourself, your relationship with people around you, but it will also add meaning to your work. It will add depth to your work. It will allow you to reach more people. Your work will be based on something more substantial, and ultimately it's going to serve the world in a greater capacity. What is the point of developing yourself if simultaneously you're upholding systems of oppression?
Which isn't sustainable, to be honest.
It's not sustainable.
Because it's built on really shaky grounds. Like, if we're bringing in spiritual context and connotations, like everybody says, build your foundation not on sand, but on more solid ground. And if we really look at it from kind of like that spiritual lens, why would you build, your practices, your business, your life on such shaky, unsustainable grounds?
Yeah, it's called willful ignorance, really. At this point, it's exhibiting willful ignorance. And here's something, to also consider. We're not going backwards. As much as Trump wants our country to go back to whenever we were
impossible.
Great, whatever that looks like for that.
Yeah, because America
was never great. I know. I know.
Oh, Lord.
It was like, we're never going back. So our culture is pulling us forward, and that forward momentum, you can either ride it and stay relevant and make your business expand and flourish, or you can pull back and deal with the consequences. There are consequences either way. You get to decide where you want to go. As business owners, I think the most important thing that we can do is really be in a committed state of expansion for the evolution of our planet. If we're thought leaders and we're not talking about this, eventually you're going to be called out. Tony Robbins has been called out. Marianne Williamson has been called out. It doesn't matter how big your platform is. If your model has a undercurrent of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia. I mean,
it's not even an undercurrent. It's a current.
Yeah.
Also, no one can see me, but
you're going to be called out.
My eyes rolled like 300 times when Thais said, if you're a thought leader. Because I did a post on Instagram a couple weeks ago that just literally said, I'm not interested in being a thought leader. I'm interested in being human.
Yeah.
Because I have a real big problem with this whole buzzword.
I know you do.
It really upsets me because I cut right into the harmful side of it. And we're losing so much of our humanness and our human capability in all these buzzwords and wanting to be the next this, that, or the other. So I would just think to yourself there if those are some words that you're using.
It's when you need to put yourself on this pedestal to make yourself appear bigger than you are. Anyway, let's focus. Okay.
I'm just giving some side context.
I understand. Right. So business model that's not grounded won't succeed. So if you need another incentive, I guess, beyond being just a decent human being for why to do this work.
Let's talk about sustainability.
Okay, so now that we said that, let's talk about what not to do as you're awakening to white privilege, because these are things that I've done. I know Lindsey's done in some level. We see a lot of white women do, and we want to, and the propensity is to want to do these things, because this is what we've been trained to do. So this is what we will want to do. And Lindsey and I are here to say, hold on, wait, don't do it.
Because this is also, this is a lot of internal work. It's all really about internal work.
It's all internal.
And battling these structures within ourselves that are so strong.
Yes.
You know, they're like embedded in us. So a lot of this is really going inside and figuring out, okay, having that inner dialogue. Why do I want to do this? Why do I need to do this? And really broadening your own self-awareness enough to be able to catch yourself doing these things. So we're going to start naming these things, and then also kind of giving a little context of like why you want to do them, why it's not appropriate to do them, why it's, you know, violent to do them. And
so last week, I had Alexis, Andrea, and Layla on, and these three women have been instrumental to my awakening process, and I shared a little bit on the podcast with Alexis towards the end of the episode, where I shared how it was Alexis's conversation and another woman, Catrice Jackson, in a Facebook group that I was in. They were bantering back and forth a lot in this week that I had joined around racism and how white women are all racists. And, you know, this was the first time me hearing this because I'm a good white woman. I'm not racist.
So well intended.
I don't see
and
color.
You're spiritual.
I'm spiritual. I definitely don't see color. And so when I saw these conversations go down, it was a little bit like, what? What are you talking about? But it woke me up. It triggered something in me. It activated something in me. I started to read more. I started to recognize the validity and the truth of what was happening, of who I was.
You started to not only diversify your perspective, but also expand your own compassion for another human's experience.
Right. And so what I did was I immediately friended Alexis. Don't laugh at Bae.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. It's just,
it's cute.
Because it's cute now.
Because this is what we want to do as white women.
Because we know now.
Right.
And so that's why it's fun. It's
I'm very grateful for Alexis. She gave me a wide berth. She's very used to this type of behavior. So I friended her, and then I sent her a private message thanking her for waking me up.
Because you immediately wanted to
associate myself
with being a good white one.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And almost center that.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's what we do naturally. We center our experience because it's the only experience we have. But we're showing you and telling you how...
So here's
that is.
So Alexis kind of just like, you know how on Facebook Messenger you can just like us?
Yes.
So she just kind of liked it. She never responded beyond that. Okay. And that was the end of our interaction for a long time.
Boundary.
She did. She had a very clear boundary. So Lindsey and I, let's break down like why not to do that.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing is when you're awakening to your whiteness, you're still very much in a space where the things you say, the things you do can be harmful to people of color.
Well, because you really don't
know what you don't know yet.
Because you're also not seeing the full spectrum of your whiteness yet. It takes a very long time.
We're still every day.
It's very confronting.
Yes.
So it brings up an overwhelming sense of fear and panic.
Yes.
Right? And this is just kind of, physiology and like mental capacity. This is just what's happening in like the human aspect of all of this.
So our immediate reaction, because this is kind of what we've been indoctrinated with from very early on in childhood, is I need to be safe. I need to be loved. Right? I need to find a sense of safety here, and I need to be loved. And the way we tend to do that is by being the good girl. How many of us, right, resonate with this good girl stereotype? I just want to be the good girl. I don't want to speak up too loudly. I don't want to be too bitchy. I don't want to put my toe out of line. I don't want to be too visible. I don't want to be too self-expressive. Like, I want to be considered good, because if people consider me good, then I'll receive the love that I so desperately want to receive.
And I also want to show you and prove to you that I'm enough, and that I'm doing enough, and that I'm here, and please see me, and please hear me, and that I'm enough. I promise. See what I'm doing?
Yes.
See, I'm thanking you for something. I'm messaging you. I'm reaching out to you. I'm showing you that I'm on your side, and I'm good enough to be on your side.
Yeah, so good girl. We're upholding the good girl. Good girl is in many ways perpetuated and created by whiteness. And we're not going to go into that right now.
Right.
But whiteness kind of created this good white girl mentality, because we wanted to be in alignment with men, because men protect us. So this good girl mentality is deeply embedded in who we are. So when we're awakening to our whiteness and we start to see that whiteness, our skin color is inherently problematic, but we can't really control that, can we? We can't just go change the color of our skin. We then have to, cognitive dissonance occurs, and we have to do anything that we can to now appear good. You know, oh my God, I'm a bad person because I'm white. Okay, so how can I appear good? How can I appear like I'm on the right side?
Right.
How can I appear like I'm not one of the bad ones?
And this can vary in degree as you go through the process. There will be some time where, you know, you feel like, okay, I can do this. I got this. Like, all right. And then there will be other days where you're like, how can I ever walk down the street again? I am violent literally to other humans because I am alive and breathing, because I'm white. It can start controlling you mentally. Yeah. So you really have to kind of, you know, get that emotional strength and resiliency going and activate that. Use
that
all
you've been
your
learning
tools,
in your coaching.
Absolutely. And literally integrate them into this work.
Yeah.
And this chapter of your journey, because white fragility is real.
Oh, yeah.
And it can feel overwhelming and very fearful.
Yes.
So,
and in that fear state, what we tend to do is lash out and push out, because we're feeling threatened. So our propensities want to close up, protect ourselves, and push anything that's not comfortable away,
or get really big and defend and attack and no, you're wrong, and no, you're wrong. I remember specifically I got into a DM conversation with another well-intended white woman.
We're all well-intended.
All well-intended. And we are not ever telling you that you are a bad person.
Never.
Ever. These are bad behaviors we've all been taught.
Yes.
That is what we're saying.
It's not personal.
No, it's not personal. So I got in, I took it into a DM because that's kind of how I roll. Like I'm a little more behind the scenes
than me.
I just, you know, it's how I am.
I will say something online and then I'll send it to Lindsey, and Lindsey is like,
I'll send her back like the palm and
like,
face
why,
emoji.
Please? Why did you have to do this so publicly? And I'm like, because I'm a masochist and I like to do it.
She really loves it. And so, you know, we all have our different styles, and our different styles, you know, you have to be okay with the work, the way it aligns with you, and you just have to own it, and you just have to go with it. So
So you were in a DM.
I was in a DM with a well-intended white woman.
Yeah.
I could tell she was a lot younger than me. So there was also, I felt like this responsibility, you know, to just try.
Yeah.
Try with her. And it started becoming really difficult because there's something that I talk about a lot, about the fact that pain is pain.
Yes.
And I really talk about it in a very prominent way. And I do really think that it's important to see and validate other people's experiences and other people's pain, even though they vary in vast degrees from our own.
Yeah.
And the ability to cultivate the ability to put your own pain down long enough to see another person's pain.
Right.
And so this well-intended younger white woman started throwing that back at me. And she's like, no, pain is pain. You even say it yourself. And I said, okay, you're right. I do. But here's the difference. You are not putting your own pain that you're feeling right now, that has been triggered by this conversation that has been happening. You're not taking that pain and putting it down on the shelf long enough to recognize, honor, and validate a woman of color's pain.
Yeah.
That is what you have not done. And she stopped. She stopped responding.
What?
It was over.
She disappeared.
She disappeared.
She ghosted. This is a typical white woman behavior.
Very, very typical.
We'll talk about that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's not very surprising.
This is the importance, and I work a lot around helping people cultivate emotional strength and resiliency around the uncomfortable feelings, and teaching them that it's okay and you're strong enough to actually hold these very, very uncomfortable feelings that we've been taught not to.
So because we've been so indoctrinated with the good girl mentality, our recommendation for you is to do not take action from that space, but rather to cultivate the emotional resiliency, to just sit with the uncomfortable realizations that you're having. Because when you reach out to, let's say when I reached out to Alexis, or when you reach out to a woman of color and you try to insert yourself into their space just to say that you're one of the good ones, you're still centering your experience. You're centering who you are in their space. And because you're still awakening to your whiteness, some violence and harm may be incurred there. And again, if we're to awaken to our whiteness, it doesn't require the reflection of women of color applauding us for us to do that work.
Yes, so it's very important that we take the tools that we've learned, like giving ourselves a space to ask ourselves why we're getting ready to respond or react in this way. What is it doing to fuel me and my needs?
Yes.
Am I trying to numb out? Am I trying to escape any bad feelings
Get
that I'm currently
validation.
feeling? Yes, all of these things, start utilizing your tools.
Yeah. And okay, so a couple other ways that the good girl kind of thing plays out is, wanting to reach out to your women of color friends and ask them to help you.
For education. To help them, to help you unpack everything that you're going through.
And then usually what you'll say is, so I, like my stepfather is Black, so like I don't really see color, but I recognize that what you're saying, so like could you just help me understand? Could you just help me understand?
Oh.
Or like in a past life I was Black, so like I carry that trauma in my body now, so like I'm not fully responsible for my whiteness. That's what women of color are hearing. But could you just like help me like understand this a little bit more? Or can you give me some perspective?
Right.
Or I feel like you're a little angry, and I just want to let you know that like I'm not like that. Like I voted for Clinton. Like I'm a good white woman. Like I'm not racist, right? So anytime we want to get into someone else's space and let them know, no, not me. No, I'm one of the good ones. Check
Not
yourself.
this one.
Not this. Check yourself. Because if it doesn't apply to you, then why do you feel so called to let them know it doesn't apply to you?
And that's because you are taking this on a personal level.
Yeah.
And we all, in order to do this work, we cannot lead with that energy.
Yes.
We cannot go into any space at all and lead with our personal wounding around this.
Yeah, I mean, I was just in a conversation with a good guy friend of mine, and he's trying to unpack his sexist, his patriarchal upholdings as a white man. And
Bravo.
great. And he has a little girl, and he was sharing with me, like, I was complaining a little bit about the genderization of little girls and how quick and early it is. And he goes, so are you saying like all parents are like this? Are you saying that like, because I do my best to blah, 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 blah. And I had to remind him, I'm like, when I'm talking about these broad cultural issues, I always come into the assumption of not all people. And then it's not personal. And that's required. We have to come into certain framework in order to engage in these bigger conversations.
Absolutely.
Women of color they're coming from the exact same space. When they say white women, they are not idiots. They know not all white women.
Right.
They know that. We know that. We know that not all men. We know that not all men are Trump-like. We know that. We're not idiots. So don't assume that they suddenly think that every white woman, and that you have to insert yourself in your good girlness to remind them that not all.
This is kind of, this context is, it's very streamlined and in alignment with, hashtag all lives matter.
Oh, yes. Good. I'm glad you brought that up.
And this is how we can start, I think, broadening people's perspective around why that's problematic and why that's bad and why that's violent.
I actually believed that.
Did you really?
I did.
Well, I mean, listen, there's part of me that's like, oh yeah.
No, I didn't understand it at all, Lindsay.
That's true. But like,
I think I first heard about Black Lives Matter in 2015. And I recall very vividly having a conversation with my partner being like, I don't get it. Like, don't all lives matter? Like, why do we have to highlight Black people? You know, police shouldn't be killing anybody, really. I mean, is my life not valuable as a white woman? And it took a lot. Now I can obviously see how deeply problematic that is.
Right.
And it's exactly what you're talking about. It connects together because it's like what Black Lives Matter is saying. They're not saying that all lives don't matter. They're saying that their lives do matter because police brutality has systematically upheld white supremacy and racial profiling. And percentage-wise, Black men and Black women, but predominantly Black men, are the victims of police brutality. So, and they're highlighting that issue. So, you know, we've got to really notice when we don't understand a concept. Okay, like we're waking up to our white privilege, we don't understand the concept, that we want to immediately go to the victims, the oppressed, and ask them the emotional labor of not only holding our fragility, but also educating us on their lived experience. There are so many resources available online. There are so many resources available for free.
And Thais is going to be linking a ton of resources in the show notes.
Yeah. And wherever possible, give back. If you're receiving education, even if it's for free, online, by people of color, most of them have PayPal links. Most of them have Patreons. Find a way to support their work. Like this is something that you can easily do. It's a form of reparation. It's a form of atonement that we can begin to economically support a group of people who have been silenced and invalidated for, 400 years at the hands of white people in this country. And as white people, we all have a responsibility for that, even if you're not from this country. I am not from this country. My ancestry does not derive any of its meaning from this land. But I am now living in this land, and I have a responsibility to this land because I now live on it.
This is a total side tangent for just a second.
Is it about your half socks? No. Okay.
No. Whatever, you have half socks now.
I bought them, guys. All. I'm trying to change the all.
I know.
The guys.
It's so hard. It's very difficult, but it's important.
I catch myself all the time.
It's not about half socks, although half socks, everybody needs them, and they're amazing.
I can attest that they're a little padded on the bottom.
They're great.
And it's pretty nice.
They're perfect.
Yeah.
They're just perfect in so many different ways. Now, what was I going to say?
Land.
Oh, no. So, and I didn't read it fully because I got sidetracked because, this is life. But somebody sent me, maybe we were sending the article back and forth, who actually developed whiteness. And I thought it was a Portuguese guy.
Oh, no, it's the word empowerment.
No, this was around whiteness. I'm going to have to find the article now.
Yeah, you're going to have to find the article now.
Crap.
The word empowerment was created by a Brazilian sociologist.
Really? I'm
That's why I'm the only one that's allowed to use the word empowerment. Everyone else is co-opting that word.
I specifically remember this, it was like, who made whiteness?
Oh.
And it might not be a Portuguese guy, I don't know. I could be totally
maybe.
How my brain is.
Hey, it works.
But I got to find the article now.
Yeah, and we'll link it to the show notes. Yeah. We will link it. I will link it to the show notes.
Thais will link it. I just show up and talk.
Okay, but I have something, a next thing that we can go to, and now I just lost it. Oh my god.
Okay, well, let's recap what we've talked about.
Okay, so we've talked about how the natural propensity when we're waking up to our whiteness is to go into good girl mode. So either go into, no, not all me, or, oh, can you please educate me?
Or let's attack and defend,
or let me center myself and let you know how good I am. Yeah. So these are all, again, they're natural. I did them. We want to align ourselves with this good, nice, good identity that we're shifting into.
We still do it.
We do it all the time.
Yeah.
And this is, again, an invitation to step back, to question your intention, to get very clear. Oh, I got it. Okay, I got the next one. Okay, so then the next kind of tendency that we want to go into is, oh my God, everything about me has been white. My business is white. Let me just reach out to a few women of color and get them on my summit. Let me just like diversify. If I just diversify my podcast, if I just like diversify my summit, or if I even just, if I give a percentage of the proceeds of my whatever to a charity, then I'm good. Done. My hands are clean. Let's dissect why those things are not necessarily the end all be all of goodness. First off, majority of charities are problematic.
Very much so. If you don't know, please educate yourself on that.
Like Tom's shoes, I just learned this recently, is highly problematic. Like you buy $90 shoes and then they give like some dinky winky pathetic shoe to the kids in Africa who desperately need solid, good, lasting shoes. They get something dinky winky that like breaks apart in seconds, and like then we Americans get to feel good about ourselves.
Also, just a little side note, I see a lot of white women like developing new charities. Like, I'm going to have a non-for-profit. How about do your due diligence, find a really amazing one that's doing great work,
because
and
there's a lot of
saviorism.
There's a lot of saviorism that comes with like giving money. It's a sense like, I'm gonna save you. So it's not coming from the foundation of we're human beings sharing an experience and I'm here and I'm elevating you and supporting you. No, it's coming from this tendency of like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. Like, I saw how people live in Bali and it's like so sad. So like, I'm gonna like give them $5 and then I get to feel like really good about myself. I'm sorry, I have to say it that way.
I don't even know what to say. That was so extra. It was so. Oh, you don't have to be sorry. It was just really like extra white.
So saviorism, right, is this idea of I need to save people from their misery because I'm privileged and I have resources, so I'm going to save them. Do we see the difference, those of you who are listening? Like, can you recognize the difference between true humanitarian energy of we're in this together and I trust your sovereignty and I know that you know what's best for you and I'm gonna be in that relationship with you to support you because I have some resources that you don't, versus I'm just gonna give you stuff
to make myself feel better.
And
that again is another opportunity for you to use your introspective tools.
Yeah.
I'm always coming in with the teaching moment. I'm
it's
like,
good.
hello.
This is important.
Very like tool alert, right?
Yeah.
Let's turn back on our internal dialogue. Why am I taking this action? Let's spend some time in dialogue with yourself, asking yourself those questions, getting clear about what the motivation is behind this action, making sure it's pure and aligned.
Yeah.
And then moving forward.
I mean, so much of these charities where you go to Africa and you build schools, like, it sounds so great, but they're not sustainable, and you're not really considering the impact that whatever you're doing has on the community long term. And this is something also, by the way, I'm just learning about this. Like,
and
when I was in Macon, McKenna Held is brilliant, and she had a whole section about this conversation, and this was very new to me. Okay, so I'm always continuing to learn about this stuff.
Yes, but we said in the beginning, we are not experts.
Right.
We're learning ourselves, and we're just sharing that.
But she was like, if you're building a school in a community, a school just for girls, this is important, right? Good work. Yeah, schools for girls. You got to think about what the economic impact is going to be on those communities where they rely on their girls and their women to uphold certain standards for their households.
In order for them to eat and
what are these girls going to do when they're in school? Are you going to offer them higher education, or are they just going to teach them how to read and then expect them to go back and fulfill the same roles that they've been fulfilling before? What does that look like? Like, McKenna encouraged us all to consider what's the repercussion of this 5 to 10 to 20 years out. There's this video going around, went viral on Facebook, and it's so in India, a community, they use paper leaf plates. Okay. So they use these beautiful leaves from this beautiful tree. It's nice and big, and they use it as plates. So this German engineer dude got a bunch of these leaves, and he created a whole machine that presses these leaves into plates. So now it becomes a leaf plate. Okay.
Oh, because the leaf itself wasn't just good enough as a plate the way
Right.
they were using
yeah,
it.
Yeah. It had to be like
Better.
made better, sturdier. So this is great. It's so eco-friendly. It's a leaf plate. It's like going viral. People love it. But I'm wondering,
I've not seen the leaf plate.
what the repercussions is for that community, for the trees in that community. Do you really think it's going to be able to sustain mass production of these leaves?
Right.
What is the economic impact for that community that you're going in there and stripping them of their trees to sell it to white ass people in America, these leaf plates? So again, we've got to just ask ourselves the longer economic and societal impact that your goodness is going to have, and really sit with that. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because has
saviorism.
anybody thought about the fact that when you go in, you take all these leaves off these trees, how much further the people in that community have to walk now to get their plates?
Right. Because you best know that we're not leaf plating their plates.
Yep.
We're leaf plating the white people plates.
It's just, we got to think about this. We have to start expanding our view
Yep.
in order to have the broader capacity to think about how the effects trickle down forever.
Yeah. So saviorism, that's another one. Okay. And then tokenizing is the other way. We're going to diversify my podcast by just having a bunch of women of color on. Now, generally what we tend to see is that what white women do is we pick women of color who are not very, quote unquote, talking about social justice. They're like the palatable women of color, you know, the nice women of color that are talking about business, and they're talking about, you know, things which, by the way, they're allowed to talk about whatever the fuck they want to talk about. But just notice if you're, who of your women of color friends you're reaching out to diversify your shit. Are they talking about the real uncomfortable stuff like social racial justice, or are they just talking about the nice stuff? And then just notice that too.
Yeah, just notice that.
But the problem with tokenizing is that you're basically filling out what is it, like
You're
check
checking a
marks.
box.
Yeah, your check marks of
You're
like,
trying
oh,
to check
I got
a box. Oh, I'm inclusive. I'm diversive. When you're really not.
because you're not actually creating a container to allow their voices to take up that space, because your perspective is still limited to whiteness. So you're asking these women of color to conform to your palatable lens of whiteness.
And you're basically still trying to kind of uphold that leg of white supremacy and all of these other structures that are really bad. And you're trying to keep the personal and political separate.
Yeah. So this is something that I found. It's actually on my Instagram that I found that I really like. Diversity asks, who is in the room? Okay. So this is what we're talking about. Like, well, oh, look, I'm all white people, right? And so you kind of just want to just sprinkle in women of color. So equity responds, who's trying to get in the room but can't, and whose presence in the room is under constant threat of erasure. Because that's what we want to be asking. Inclusion asks, has everyone's ideas been heard? Justice responds, whose ideas won't be taken seriously because they aren't in the majority.
And just, those are hard questions to sit with. Very
hard, because we want to get to the answer, right? Everything, this is what you were talking about earlier today, Lindsay. All of our spirituality as white women is funneling us to being certain and having the answers and being in alignment and being balanced and having it all. And like, that's it. That's what our spirituality is guiding us to. It doesn't leave us much space to be in the uncertainty, in the mysterious, right? These are Lindsay's words. Like, to be in the capacity to hold complex conversations. And it's not just white spirituality. It's our brains in general. But
it's also our structure. Our patriarchal structure lines us up to be linear.
Yes.
Solution, problem.
Right.
When that is not how energy and the energetics of the world works.
Right.
And like Thais was saying, I was just like telling her how much I really was like, just like so in it when her, Layla and Alexis and Andrea were, having this, holding this container for this opening of the mysterious and embracing of the uncertainty, and that's what life is about, because I love to swim in those waters. It feels it feels right to me.
Yeah. So diversity is a behavior. We don't want just a behavioral change. We're looking for a perspective change. And perspective changes require deeper work. So before the good girl mentality picks up, steps in, and says, I'm just going to diversify because then I'll look good. Then I'll look woke, quote unquote. Then I'll appear to be like so intersectional. Before we do that, let us look at the ways that we've not been diverse in our own holding of our language, holding of our experience, holding of other people's experience, holding of our values. Like let's bring it inward before we dump it out.
I'm also, this is starting to creep up for me, and I'm not sure if this is something yet or not, and I don't know, but I want to be transparent about it because I think this is a good, another good like kind of teaching opportunity to call myself out on something. So when I just said, those mysterious kind of uncertain waters are the waters that I love to swim in, something just came up in me, and this thought of, but those are the waters that people of color are drowning in constantly. And so there might be my white privilege oozing out yet again because I'm saying, oh, I choose to swim in them.
Yes. Interesting.
And I'm not sure.
Yeah, so this is actually what Lindsey and I do all the time. So
fully, but I think it's important to just call it out because I'm starting to feel it.
But this is what Lindsey and I do all the time, right? So we'll be talking, we'll be chatting, and then Lindsey will have maybe something like that, or I'll have something like that. Like, oh, actually, I wonder if that is a perspective coming from my privilege.
Yes, and we start to question ourselves out loud, and then we just use the other person as this sounding board. And the other person is white.
Yes. Yeah, we lean on each other as white women. But you know what's interesting is that there are so many times when I'll say something and Lindsey will say something, and I'll be like, damn, motherfucking, I don't like that. Right? Whatever that perspective is. I don't like that. I don't like thinking about that. I don't like knowing that. That triggers me. That activates me. And this is something maybe we don't often share, is the pushback too.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll be like, no.
We're not always so open.
Like I don't want to be, I don't want to think it that way. That's not fair. That's not cool. That's not whatever. And we have triggers.
I like to call you out so much on your cookies. You love your cookies.
I love my cookies.
Your ally cookies.
So like
I'm like, why are you doing that, Thais?
I
you're
very
like,
much
shit.
have desires to get my cookies. Like I said, like because I reached out to Alexis, you think that just behavior goes away? No. It just gets more insidious.
Yeah, and so we do a really good job of calling each other out on that stuff.
But again, look, this isn't personal. Lindsey's never attacking me.
Never.
I'm not now looking at Lindsey like, wow, you white racist bitch.
Right.
You know, like what we're doing is we're getting curious. The curiosity is everything. We're unpacking. There's another thing that I want to share that is also on my Instagram that I just thought that I really like.
Oh, look at you with a justice highlight.
I do have a justice highlight. I have a worth and a justice highlight now. It says here, none of us were born screaming revolution. None of us were born a fully developed, socially conscious and understanding of capitalism, sexism, homophobia, erasure, racism, colorism, and heteronormativity. We were conditioned at birth to believe that there's only one correct way to live in society. The process of peeling back all those layers is necessary to create a just world, to dissect the systematic and structural powers of oppression, and how the privileges that we carry help shape them. It doesn't matter how small these privileges are. One brick helps build a fortress. So what we do, identify, analyze, unlearn, relearn, that takes work. That takes being honest with yourself. That means acknowledging privileges. That means going out and looking for the info. I found that on Alexis's Facebook, but I'm pretty positive she didn't write that, but I don't know who did.
Okay, but important, Thais has that. She put it on her highlight, and she has H/T, heard through, and she tagged Alexis in it because what is she doing there? She's learning from
Yes.
a woman of color,
And
right?
I'm giving her
but she's
credit.
amplifying
Yes.
her voice in
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
We do this all the time with our teachers, right? As white spiritual ladies, we
Yeah.
walk around and we talk about our teacher's this, and we got her book and that book, and we're always amplifying them, right?
Yes.
And then when it comes to this more shadow work, right? We don't talk about it as
Yeah.
much. So therefore, we also don't amplify our teachers as much, which I just want to make sure we're recognizing that in like very, very big contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Awakening to white privilege. What else are we missing? So,
Well, can we talk real quickly about how not to run and delete and
okay,
ghost?
good. I'm so glad you said it. See, this is why I like the two of us. We're so good
It's
together.
It's good.
So-
we have a good dynamic.
Other thing not to do. You get called out. And maybe
Or
that's
called in,
how
whatever we wanna say it.
you awoke to your privilege, because you got a nasty call out. Nasty because it feels nasty, not nasty because it was nasty.
Right.
It can be heard in the nicest of ways. It still feels very nasty. But here's what we tend to do. So we get called out. A couple things that we tend to do is, first, we tend to tone police. So we tend to say something like, I can't hear what you're saying because of the way it's being delivered. And that kind of puts the pressure, or not the pressure, the responsibility of the oppressed to deliver its message of your violence in a way that's palatable to you.
Right.
So tone policing is something that we white women do all the time.
And again, that comes from a place of taking it personally.
Right.
And feeling personally attacked.
Yeah.
And while, yes, when somebody's calling you out, I can see how you're like, but they're calling me out in
Especially
my behavior.
publicly, the ego
so it's
steps in.
personal. But what we're trying to ask you to do is expand here, use your tools, and try
Pull
not
back.
to take it so directly personally.
Do what you need to do. Do the shame work. Investigate the shame. Just because you're feeling shame does not mean that you're being shamed.
Yes.
So be with that. Reach
There's
out.
a discernment there.
Reach out to someone that you can cry to. Because what tends to happen is when we get emotional, we want to bring that emotion into the conversation.
Yes, and do you know how many times Thais and I have called each other literally hysterical about this? You can say firsthand, when I went through Catrice Jackson's 30-day program. I swear, Thais was like on speed dial.
Well,
and
I'm
I was
always
like,
on speed dial.
I was like losing it a lot.
It was very uncomfortable for you. So the reason why Lindsey called me, right, instead of dumping the emotions to Catrice or to other women of color, is because then it centers your feelings over the harm that's being caused. So
that's not the way
we get called out.
We do it.
We immediately tone police, or we basically say, well, like, I need proof of this. Like, I don't believe you. Right? We push back.
Give me specific times.
So we're again asking
I've done
them
this.
to educate us.
Right.
Or we'll go into like, no, I can't hear you. Or we'll just get so emotional that then because when a white woman gets emotional, the attention all goes to that white woman, as opposed to continuing to center the voice of a woman of personal color.
And that's where terms like white fragility, white tears.
White tears is the big one, yeah. Yeah. And so notice the desire to have the emotions. You're allowed to have your emotions.
Yes, we're not saying
I'm an emotions teacher.
Yeah.
Like Lindsey's an emotions teacher.
This is like
emotional resilience.
Big body of my work is emotions.
I believe emotions is our power source. So we're not saying don't have emotions. We're just saying you've got to know where you can
don't throw your emotions on
where
everyone.
to process them.
Yes.
Process them with people
in a
who
container.
who can hold that container. Exactly.
And if it's anything to do with racial issues, never throw your white tears and your white fragility in that space.
Yeah.
Ever.
Because again, that's you centering yourself. And in these conversations, the point is not to make it be about you, right? Because it's not personal about you. Okay. So the other really important thing to highlight here is that when we're being called out and when we're being, said that something that we're doing is problematic, our propensity is to delete.
And run and hide.
So we delete the post, we delete all that work that all these people did.
And we usually defend before we delete.
So we're defending, and then delete. We disappear. We ghost.
And so all the work
of all the
people, because this is another form of a patriarchal structure where we don't value emotional labor.
And
that's it's very wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. People doing emotional work, and usually that
and intellectual work,
women, and yes, absolutely intellectual work. This is definitely a hybrid of all things.
Yeah.
But we label it as emotional labor because it is very emotionally taxing.
Yeah.
This is very valuable.
Yes.
Very, very
People
valuable.
educating you on how you're problematic is a gift.
Yes.
It's a big gift. It may not feel like a gift. It may feel like you're being prosecuted. Mm-hmm. I promise you'll survive. Mm-hmm. I promise you, if you internalize what's happening, you will grow and become even bigger and better, stronger. I promise you're not dying. Shame cannot kill you. Ignorance from white privilege kills people. Mm-hmm. White supremacy kills people. You being shamed does not kill people. I think we need to get that right.
We still need to do we need to do the work around shame. Like we have to do like a workshop on shame.
Yes, we do. I love shame so much. So our propensity is to want to run and to delete. Don't do that. If you need to step away, step away. If you need to communicate that, listen, I need to step away for a moment. I'll be back.
Be transparent. Don't be afraid to be transparent.
Don't ghost. Let people know. Like, I need to process this. I will be back. And then do what you need to do and step back.
And leave it. Leave it all up. Because so many other people
can learn from that experience.
From all of it.
Let me tell you how much I've learned from reading about other people's mistakes and challenges and problems has been so critical and crucial to my awareness. And that happens when you don't delete. Here's what will happen if you do delete. People have screenshotted your shit because people are used to things being deleted. They will not only now call you out for deleting, they will post the screenshots. So that shit's going to be there anyway.
It will just get worse.
It will. It will just get worse.
Because you're trying to run from a problem that you can't run from. None of us can.
Yeah.
Really, the time is really up.
The other thing not to do when you're getting called out is run to your women of color friends, asking them to defend you or to validate that you are not like all the other white women.
Right.
Right.
Because, again, remember, this is not personal.
Right.
There's no need for you to, stand as not me.
Even when people call you trash, I mean, listen, I've seen it all. Any type of communication I've seen women call men trash. I've seen women of color call white women trash.
You got called.
Oh yeah.
I mean, something pretty bad, like something like similar to the somebody compared me to the KKK. And you were like devastated.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks when, she basically... So basically, I said something like, there was this guy who was talking about white woman doing something, and I responded, and I was like, why am I not surprised? It never ceases to amaze me, is what I said.
Right.
It never ceases to amaze me the extent to which, white women. And listen, I wrote that from the perspective, from the place, my intention around that was... I want to be seen as not me.
Right.
I want to be seen as like
you're on the good side.
I'm on the good side. So right there, when I got called out, that was an invitation for me to ask myself, like, why did I really write that?
Right.
Why did I feel the propensity to go out of my way to chime in, right?
So because you wanted to be seen as the good one.
A woman of color saw my comment, went onto my page. At that point, I hadn't written anything about racism in a hot minute. She came back and she basically said, like, I looked through your page, like, you're no different than people in the KKK with your ignorance and blah, blah, blah. Right. And she wrote all these things, and they were very, very hurtful. Mm-hmm. It's not nice when people call you names.
And
it's not nice when...
And what did you do? You left it all out there.
It's not nice. It's not nice. It doesn't feel nice.
Right.
It doesn't feel
nice.
good. It doesn't... And so we want to take it personally because it feels like a personal attack.
Well, of course.
And you may feel like, oh, I would never say that to somebody. And you can have all your justified responses and reactions. Again, I reached out to my white friends who I knew could support my fragility, to unpack that stuff. But at the end of the day, I had to really sit with the fact that this woman has been so tremendously harmed by white women just like me. And she's having her experience of that, and she's navigating that.
And what did you do? You were able to put your pain down long enough to see hers, to hear hers, to validate hers.
Yeah.
And then you went and you picked your pain back up and you went and dealt with it.
Yeah, I don't remember what I even said, or if it was like a personal. Actually, I'm not gonna share it because I don't want you all to think like, oh, that's how I should be responding.
No.
How
But
you
we're
respond?
just saying like things. We're coming at this from experience. You know, we've gone through this for a little while now, and we're just telling you like the things that we see that we know aren't the right way of dealing with it.
Yes.
And in hopes that you will, learn right along with us.
The other thing that I don't recommend doing is processing your emotions of what's happening publicly. I know that we live in this entrepreneurial space of transparency, and we want to be transparent with what things are doing and how things are going.
Yeah.
But right now, because you're still awakening and you're still trying to understand, you processing it online can not only trigger people, but then it gets other white women to kind of step in and try to defend you.
It just riles things up.
It's just not the place to do it. Because
Yeah.
this isn't unpacking like your own spirituality. Like what we're unpacking here is violence. It's slavery. It's perpetuating people's abuse. The racism isn't like this fun little light shit that we get to emotionally unpack in front of thousands of people online, because again, that's still centering you.
Right.
This is stuff to take backstage, process it, figure it out, unpack it, do the work first.
This is actually where I would suggest listening to Brene Brown. When she says, right, she teaches about like this vulnerability and how to not publicly share things that you have not processed to a certain extent,
it creates
right?
codependency.
So this
it's
is
like validation.
This is like the one
It's
area
oh my God, that's brilliant.
where I would be like, listen to her.
Ironically,
Right?
as a white woman.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about just a couple things for what we should do.
Yes.
What should we do? We're awakening to our white privilege. What are some things that we can do to not only further our education, but also start taking a stand? Because while this is an internal work, we've got to really ask ourselves, are you really okay with upholding white supremacy by being silent?
And which this in and of itself can feel really, really scary, because what's going to start coming up is, okay, I see it. I am fully aware that it's happening. I know I should say something because it's wrong, but I'm so afraid that I'm gonna do it wrong.
Because good girl. Because we still have to uphold the good girl.
Right.
The good girl image does not mess up. She's a perfectionist.
And she's also afraid of fucking up publicly.
Yeah.
Even though she's trying to do it good, right?
Yeah.
And then having to deal with the feelings that come with that.
Yeah.
So just know that. Notice it.
Yeah. Yeah. So first kind of recommendation, really get into the muscle of listening. Listening some more, and listen.
Yeah.
Listen. Oh, by the way, that does not mean speaking. Oh, listening means
Deep listening.
listening. And this is hard because we're so used to wanting to interrupt and to share our point of view and to talk about it, but this is not your space, okay? So listen, follow women of color, particularly women of color who are vocal about social and racial justice. Follow, not friend. Follow them. Do not comment. Do not add your shit. Do not try to make yourself look like the good person. Follow them. Listen to them. Start to notice. You'll start to notice patterns. You'll start to notice behaviors. You'll start to notice, oh, it's got an email. You'll start to notice the behaviors, you know, but listening is crucial. I would recommend reading at least 2 articles a day, but that's because I'm a little committed to this.
Well, you're also a fast reader.
We've
determined
I'm
that.
a Scorpio intense.
Or I'm just a very slow reader.
I like to go in deep. Read as many articles as possible. Really get aware of the language.
And I mean, listen, also be courageous and put yourself in, a course. Like I did Catrice's course. It was so hard.
There are so many good courses.
Andrea for coaches, because I know a lot of leadership.
It's coaches, healers, teachers.
Yeah, listen to this podcast. Andrea does an amazing
She was our guest last week. She is so good.
Coaching for activism?
Yes.
Right?
She's
coaching as activism.
Coaching as activism.
As activism, yeah.
She is so good. She knows this shit. And she is just a brilliant, brilliant individual. And I highly recommend her course. So we're going to list some resources. There are really good.
Desiree Attaway also.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So
I interviewed
good.
her and Erica, and they have a course. Diversity 101 or Diversity as an Asset.
Yes.
So I'll link some of them. But learn. Put money where your mouth is. You're so quick to invest in a fucking Instagram course, but you're not willing. This is hard work, people.
Oh, it's really hard. But I will tell you.
And let me tell you what, you signing up for a course does not check off the box that you now know this shit.
No, because like we said in the beginning, we're not experts. We never will be.
I'm so sandy.
I know. We were at the beach this morning. I'm literally picking sand out of my hair. Every time.
Between my boobs.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Because
sand is in my ear.
I know. It was really windy at the beach. Really windy.
I just needed to look at Mama Ocean.
Yeah,
so we went to the ocean.
We needed some healing.
And I just.
Because we're both bleeding.
We're both bleeding.
We needed some connection with Mama Ocean.
We're both menstruating.
Day one
feeling
and
the
day
womb.
one and day 2.
Feeling
right
the
over
womb.
here, getting it first. So sand all over, yes,
everywhere. It's just everywhere.
All over.
Yeah. So listen and put your money where your mouth is. Give money. Put money in Women of Color's Patreons. Patreon is so great because you can give as little as $1, and it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. We're so quick to put money into charities for fucking Africa when there are next door neighbors. There's people in your very city who need support. Need the resources that you're just so quick to ship overseas. So instead of being in that savior complex, go into your community.
And rein it in, rein it in. Look just outside your window.
Look just outside your window to your community. There are people there. There are people right next to you that it would make a big difference in their lives.
Yeah, and it also strengthens your connection with your community, which is so important.
Yeah. So the thing I don't recommend doing is immediately going and making friends, right? But what I do...
attempting.
Yeah. I think it was in last week's episode. Alexis and Andrea and Layla were like, we're so quick to, if you notice you don't have any trans friends, that you just go and try to make trans friends.
Yeah.
But who said they want to be friends with you? I mean,
Right.
honestly. Listen, if you don't have a lot of women of color in your groups or whatever, odds are they don't feel safe there.
Yeah.
So,
and
something to look
it's
at.
just something to look at and observe and then, do your interpersonal work around that.
But what you can do, shit.
Did you forget?
Yeah, it just
It went out.
It just slipped out.
Yeah.
Let's see. Listen, there's another one.
I don't know. You didn't really share your outline with me.
Oh my
before we
God, I'm
jumped
going
in
crazy.
Here. Oh,
I didn't have.
You're not going crazy.
I am not going crazy.
Ableist talk.
It was definitely something. Wow.
You are drawing a blank. That is what you're doing. That's what's true. You're
I'm
not
drawing.
going crazy.
Yeah,
You're just drawing a blank.
I heard that. I'm going to figure this out. What can we do as we're awakening to our white privilege.
Well, we talked about listening. We talked about, supporting and amplifying. We talked about putting yourself in courses. We talked about surrounding yourself with, other white women who are going through this. That
I still don't remember, but part of the
together.
listening is start buying books from, people of color. Mm-hmm. Start watching movies where it's predominantly people of color. Start getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, because it's so easy to get into our whitewashed communities rather than going and making women of color friends. Start to immerse yourself in the language and the understanding and the cultures that's thriving here in the United States.
Yeah,
Latino culture, like Indian culture. I mean, there's so much incredible that we're missing out on. Beautiful perspectives and heritage and rituals that are right here, that I'm not saying tokenize and I'm not saying culturally appropriate,
right,
but we get to witness it from places like Netflix and Hulu and Google and YouTube. We don't have to go far to immerse ourselves in some pretty cool, awesome stuff that's going on in our own country.
Yeah, and I also just want to share the feeling of awkwardness when I was first starting to awaken to all of this.
I got it.
Okay,
I'm just going to say it.
Say it.
Conversations. Oh. Have conversations with other white people. Okay, go back.
Okay. All right. Well, we kind of
I got it. I can breathe now.
Oh my God.
My brain was frying, trying so hard to remember.
Access the information. So I want to just say, the awkwardness, when I was first starting to go through this and really wake up to everything, I remember feeling super awkward around people of color.
Oh, yeah.
Where I never did before, because, I grew up in a very mixed racial kind of upbringing, because I didn't grow up in, middle class white neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so my experience growing up, I always had a lot of friends of color, a lot,
yeah.
And so then when I moved to New York City is when kind of things started changing.
Yeah.
And, I started doing better and was able to, just put myself in just higher economical, places. And I started seeing there was shifts in, my friends and the color of my friends. And I didn't necessarily know it then, but reflecting on it then.
Yeah.
And so now, I've kind of, lived this past, 15 years of just, having predominantly white friends and then going through this process. And I remember literally being in a doctor's office going to get my blood taken, and I was sitting next to a person of color, and all of a sudden I felt super awkward. I was like, oh my gosh, should I make eye contact? Should I smile? All of a sudden I didn't know. I became Catrice Jackson in her course, she says you become, what's the term she used? Discombobulated or something?
Yeah.
Something like that she uses, and it literally describes it with such perfection. So just know that can happen.
Yeah.
And it's part of the process.
Yeah. I mean, here's some more things you can do. Go to grocery stores that you don't normally go to.
Oh yeah, thanks, Professor Fernando.
Yeah, this is something
for calling that out for us. One of our professors in our society in the individual class, which is a class that is
really talking about
literally all about just all social justice, intersections of class and race and gender and everything. And it's amazing. And he says on one of additional assignments, go to a grocery store not in your neighborhood, and notice the difference and do your grocery shopping.
Notice go to spaces where you know that you're gonna be one of the few white people, and not take up space.
Just have the experience.
Just notice what that's like.
Awareness and
I mean, it's so rare for me to be one of the few white people in a room. Mm-hmm. And so now when I'm in a predominantly white space and I see people of color, I just have an additional level of, obviously not anywhere near the same level of understanding as them, because I'm not a person of color, and I can never, but I get an additional slight amount of insight into that feeling of being like being the different one.
Yeah, I actually like Erica Hart and her partner Ebony.
I also interviewed Erica Hart for the podcast.
Yeah, a really good one, by the way. So they have a podcast. It's called Hood Rats to Head Wraps, or maybe it's Head Wraps to Hood Rats. I'm not sure which way it goes.
It'll be in the show notes.
It'll be in the show notes, and I listen to it and I love it. And I love the fact that she talks about I feel like in her first couple of episodes, they talked about Afropunk, which is this big kind of music festival, for people of color.
Yeah.
And I loved that she was like, if you are a white person showing up to Afropunk, like, stay your ass in the back.
Yes.
Like, don't go and put yourself in the front row and, like, take up all that space. Like, this isn't for you. This isn't about you. Like,
but that's a radical thought. I mean, this is for whiteness, for white people, predominantly white men, but white women too.
Yeah.
This idea that it's not for you can seem so alienating,
because everything's for us.
Everything has
centered us
and been for us as white people.
Right.
So this idea that like remember when Wonder Woman came out and there was a small theater in Texas who did a viewing for women only. They did a women only viewing, and a man sued. And he was pissy because he's like, well, it's gender
eye roll.
It's gender discrimination.
I get it, yes.
Because he feels like he's not included. But like, come on, like there's like the idea for a white man to have a space that's not his. It's
and this is also like when Black Panther came out, right? Like this is there's a lot of problems with Black Panther. However, the broad
and there's
spectrum,
also so much goodness of Black Panther.
Broad spectrum, it's so good, right?
Yeah.
Like bigger view is it's really important, right? But think about it. If you're white and if you're listening to this, did you rush out the opening night
because you want to seem like the good
and did you
white
sit
person
in like a prime seat?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you wait until the initial rush, and maybe you sat in like a seat even after the initial rush? Maybe you decided to sit in a seat that wasn't prime.
Another email.
And take up that space from a person of color.
Yeah, is that really interesting?
I know, it is.
These are questions to just ask yourself. And here's what's interesting. When we're doing this work, you get to hold a lot of complexities. And that's where the emotional resilience work and the deep trauma work that Lindsey does, that I do with our clients, this is where it gets really important. Because we need to be able to hold both that it's problematic and that it's okay.
We have to increase our capacity to hold not only the polarities, but all the in-between.
So, like, we can both hold that, like, as a white woman, my presence in the world can be inherently harmful, but also not let that mean that, like, I'm worthless and I'm bad and that I don't deserve to take up any space. And this is something that Lindsey and I have been navigating and talk about all the time because it is
all
complex.
The time.
There is no black and white answer.
I struggle with it a lot.
Yeah,
like almost to sometimes it becomes paralyzing where it's like, how do I honor my pain while also hold and navigate and be aware of my privilege?
Yeah. So this is something, we don't have answers. I'm constantly thinking about this too. Here's something that I shared in Macon. Earlier this year, 2017, I was going to create a course called Awake and Aware.
Oh my gosh, I remember this. We talked a lot about this.
It's a brilliant course. I mean, it was 100% ready to go. The sales page was on the operations, the back end of the, I spent countless hours, I think 3 weeks creating the content.
I saw a lot of,
iteration.
Will you proofread this? Will you read
it?
Yeah. What does this sound like? How does it?
Oh, yeah.
What if I do this?
I leaned on
it was good.
Several people. I paid tons of women of color to support me and help me with this. And the course is going to be on how to unpack your whiteness within your business so that your business is not problematic. And it was going to be like a short introduction to this whole idea.
Right.
And then if you want more resources, I was going to lead you to Andrea's course. I was going to lead you. So I was going to do some of the...
It was kind of like a preliminary...
Yeah, I was going to do some of the emotional labor of holding space for white women. But even before they get to Andrea's course, because Andrea also does not care to hold all the white fragility that happens.
Shouldn't be.
Right. So it was brilliant. And I was gonna release it on a Tuesday. Okay, everything was ready to go. It was a Monday. And my coach at the time was like, why are you doing this course?
Such a good coach.
I hated her for that question. So again, I invested thousands of dollars, hours, resources, my friends' time, people's time that I value very much. Why am I doing this course? Should I be benefiting and making money off of pain of women of color, people of color? Am I going to be profiting from an unjust system? Am I capitalizing on my social justice-ness by doing this course?
Do I just want to look like I'm good and on the right side?
And the most important question of all, do I look like I just want to be a good white woman? I'm so glad I did not release that course into the world.
Yeah, you had a good coach there.
I'm so glad because and people, I got the answers I wanted from people. I asked people all the time, should I do this course? Should I do this course? And I got the answer that I wanted. There's some problems as long as you recognize and you're vulnerable and you're real with it and you understand and you teach only from your own lived experience and you'll be fine. So like I made sure that this course was like bulletproof.
I'm always a nervous Nelly one. I'm always like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah,
Are you sure? Are you
you
sure?
are.
Are you sure?
It's
Are you sure?
hilarious.
I don't know. You should double check with all these 300 people first.
yeah. But I bulletproofed. It was gonna be go. It was a go until it wasn't. And I really had to sit with, what am I doing this for?
So like we've been, I've been chiming in with these little, teachable moment, use your tools. This was Thais doing that.
Yeah.
She paused. Like she went behind the scenes. She went hard. She did all the things.
Oh, yeah.
She had it all prepared. But then she paused.
Yeah.
She used the tools. She brought them in. She had the inner dialogue and she was honest with herself. And that's another big part of this. And this is a lot of the internal work when you start opening up to these harder, quote unquote, negative, bad, tough feelings and emotions. This is like the honesty.
Yeah.
Is really tough to really be
hard.
honest with yourself and be like, oh, wow. Like be able to look at yourself and go, I'm a racist. Fuck.
I've always been a racist.
And I always will be in some capacity.
And
at
I
some
need
degree
to do something about that.
Right. And we don't work to strip that label.
There was
we work to not uphold
yes.
the label.
There was a woman of color who shared on Facebook yesterday, like, don't tell me you've never been anti-Black. Like, be real with me.
Yeah.
Because
you've done it even not knowing that you were doing it.
So I was anti-Black.
We've all done it unconsciously.
I was anti-Black because I was indoctrinated to be anti-Black.
It's hard to
oh my
cop
God,
up to.
It
feels shitty.
It does. And but now that I get to recognize that, I'm going to do everything in my powers to do something different. And I don't call myself an ally. I think ally is a word that tends to be very problematic because, again, it's like we get to call ourselves something and then we get to feel good about ourselves. And I'm not doing this for me. And this is something that I'm stepping into again and again and again.
Yeah, I've actually been starting to do some behind the scenes work on the helpful and harmful side of labels.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah, because I've posted a little bit here and there about like labels and stuff, and I've gotten some interesting feedback. Because
it can be so helpful, if you don't know who you are and you're navigating it, to find something definitive. It's like the first step for me was I had to identify myself as a binge eater because I was in denial for so long that I had a problem. So just like in AA, you say I'm an alcoholic, right? For me, saying like I'm a binge eater was so liberatory, so critical. But then it gets to the point where then it becomes a crutch and then you can't heal because you're so identified as that. If I'm a binge eater and I don't binge, who am I? And so then we cling to the label as a form of safety. So then the next step, the next piece of the work is, can I let go of this label because that is no longer able to contain who I am.
And that again moves in kind of circles back into the ability to embrace the uncertainty
Absolutely.
and the mystery of life. And that's a very beautiful, radical idea and concept.
I know. Okay,
but
so
it's important.
we have to do the two things, and then we'll wrap up. So, I've almost launched this course out into the world. I didn't, and I'm not going to, and I'm probably never will. And instead, I'm going to use this platform of a podcast, and I'm going to continuing to insert additional educational, like this one with Lindsey, episodes, and it's free for the world. So white women have access to this regardless of their financial resources. So there's no excuse for them to not do this work. And this is my way of giving back. This is my way of using the knowledge that I was going to use in the course in a different capacity, and it feels really good for me to do it in this way. And we'll see how it evolves. But when I made that decision, talking about a business perspective here, when I made that decision and really decided to stay in my lane, my lane is working on the worthiness wound. My lane is self-expression. My lane is unpacking our emotional wounds and cultivating emotional resilience. Like, when I reaffirmed that this is my lane, my business flourished. I said no to that course, even though I knew it was going to make a lot of money, because this is something that is so needed right now. And I know a lot of white women would sign up for that course so they can seem like they're the good people and they can seem like their business is not problematic. I know I would have made a lot of money in that course.
Yeah.
I said no. Again, talking business here from a business standpoint.
Right.
I said no because, for many reasons, one of which, not my lane. I chose my lane and my business flourished. And that's, again, a testament to that alignment. It's a testament to that moment-to-moment decision of, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
So let's talk about another thing that we can do as we're awakening to our white privilege, and we'll wrap up here. And that's start to have these conversations with other white people. This is something you can easily do. I know when Lindsey started waking up to this, she literally texted all her friends and was like, hey, bitches, we got to talk about your whiteness.
Oh, yeah. And
she was unapologetic about it.
Some of them were like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, people would write me and be like, your social media posts are getting very unlike you and angry. What's going on? Is everything okay? I'm like, no, everything is not okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen what's happening in the world?
So anger is a very normal phase or space, maybe not phase, space to be in when you're first awakening to your whiteness.
And to also come in and out of, and to learn how to dance with.
And this is something Lindsey and I are talking about all the time, how to dance with our anger. Anger is a normal experience, an emotion. You're allowed to express your anger. You're allowed to be angry of social and racial injustice as you're doing this work. Anger is a piece of it.
But it's also about going into the anger and finding what else is there, because usually there's a deep hurt and sadness.
Yeah.
And that's what's really hard to
talking
sit
about
with.
it does a lot of things. Talking about it helps you process the information. It helps you to affirm, what you know and what you don't know, so you can continue to educate. You can see where your weak spots are, your blind spots are. If you are a coach or a healer or a teacher, then you know that the more you talk about it, the more it goes into your heart. You really get to know it. And so Lindsey and I constantly having conversations about this is how we've been able to do this work so quickly.
Oh, and another place where your ego will step in. Oh, because this maybe wraps up into the savior, the white savior mentality. And this is something that I went through a little bit, because I'm not, I do a lot of behind the scenes, like we've said. I'll message somebody in a DM and then we'll have the conversation, not publicly. So I kind of float in that area anyway. However, what happened was I was having all these conversations and they were super uncomfortable with all my white friends. And I was just being really real and raw and open and hey, I'm waking up to all this. This is a problem. We all have a responsibility to humanity, literally. And I'm somebody that really takes my responsibility in the world probably way too seriously, to a fault. But I think it's important that we all recognize our responsibility to our fellow humans. And so what started happening was some of my friends started waking up, and they're like, oh, wow. And then we started having these really beautiful conversations that were super uncomfortable, but they were really powerful and they were really making an impact. And then some people that I knew started like talking about it like more publicly and vocally and whatever. And then I started being like, wait, but why aren't you giving me credit? Well,
oh yes,
wait, but you know, and I was like, oh my
yes.
gosh, Lindsey Ray, look at your ego, and like you're a white, like literally my ego was putting on its white savior cape and being like, where's all my credit? Where's all my cookies? Right?
They call them ally cookies.
Yeah, right. So and then I was like, I had to get real with myself real quick and check myself and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And you know, I mean, we all kind of float back in and out of these spaces, but it's important to recognize them. It's important to recognize the humanness of them and to accept them and say, okay, and just check them and then keep it moving.
But so we've got to be having these conversations because that's where change happens more so than a Facebook post, right? So talking about it to your parents, and you get to decide what that looks like for you. You get to decide, you know, how that's going to unfold. You know, calling your grandma racist and stomping out of Thanksgiving dinner may be an option for you. It may not be an option for you.
And also, this is where you are able to work with your own alignment, and it's going to be uncomfortable no matter what, okay? However, you're going to hear many different people with many different views of all varieties, degrees, and extremes.
You're gonna experience white fragility, and you're gonna experience white tears, and you're gonna experience all of the defense mechanisms that people have in place to protect them from seeing their whiteness.
Absolutely. And you will also hear people say that if you don't call your grandmother a racist and stomp out of Thanksgiving dinner and never talk to them again, then you're bad.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna have an opinion of how you should do this. So you've got to find your own way,
and you have this will to work with that, not taking it personally, and you have to do what's right for you while not consciously upholding these structures. It's very difficult. Yeah, and I don't know that there's any right or wrong way. I'm not sure.
My dad,
I don't know.
My mom, like, you know, the older generation, you know, the certain things that they said were culturally acceptable at the time, which is not. Our grandparents, the things that they said are now not culturally acceptable. You know, are we really going to change a 90-year-old's point of view? I don't know. How much of that is our responsibility? I don't know. But what I do know for me personally is that what's important to me are the people that are in my life understand my values and understand my boundaries.
And
so
also
I don't
understand that it's not okay anymore.
Exactly.
For them to have that behavior, that vernacular.
I just want them to know that if they decide to exhibit behavior that I see as wrong, I'm going to name it. And I'm not going to let them stay comfortable in that behavior. Now, do I demand and expect them to change overnight? That's my shit, right? But like, I am clear on my values. I'm clear on what's important to me. And anyone who's in my circle knows this and will understand that I'm expecting them to show up in a different light.
Yes.
And that means that I've lost really important, at the time, relationships in my life. I've burned colleagues' relationships, people that I know I would have gotten more visibility, or I would have been chosen to speak at their event, or they associated with me at some point, and now they defriend me. I mean, I have people defriend me all the time, people that I liked, respected, and that sucks, and it hurts my feelings. Just yesterday, this happened. Someone that, like, I was in a workshop that, like, I know her, like, I respect her. I don't know why she defriended me. It hurts. I don't like that. And at the same time, I'm super clear on my values, and I'm super clear on what I'm willing and not willing to uphold. And if you're not willing to be in dialogue with me and to talk to me, then I'm not willing to be freaking out over you.
Yeah.
Like, if if you, like, to me, this is not theoretical knowledge. Social justice and policies that uphold oppression are not just fun things to read about on the internet.
These are people's
These are
lives.
people. This is my life I'm talking about when we're talking about immigration, because I am a Latina immigrant. So this is literally my life. I mean, I am a U.S. citizen, so I'm protected. I have certain privileges.
Right.
I'm not undocumented, but like, you know, I'm real clear that like when we're talking immigration and when people are like immigrants aren't welcome in this country, I'm viscerally clear that you're speaking to me.
And also, let's just chime in right here. If we are looking at it through the spiritual lens that you want to look at everything through, and if we are all really one, then an attack on your brother or sister is an attack on you.
So this is where oneness comes in. It's
Yes.
not oneness from a sense of we don't see differences. It's I respect your difference and I still have your back.
Because you are me and I am you.
Yeah.
And this is your human family here.
So this is not my theoretical knowledge. So if I'm meeting a person who tells me or portrays to me in some way or shape or form that they uphold systems of oppression through their lens, listen, I'm not really interested because that's violence to me. I'm not a bitch about it. I'm not gonna cut you out or like whatever, but I'm not really gonna be interested in maintaining a friendship where I don't feel like you value the lives of women of color because your business is predominantly in a whitewashed sort of way.
And
So it's unfortunate because I lose a lot.
Right.
It's fortunate because I gain so much more. I gain integrity. I gain respect for myself. I gain deeper, meaningful relationships.
you grow. You grow
support
and
the people in
expand.
my life to grow. I hold them to a new level of love that includes accountability, and that excites me. And again, since this journey, Linz, I've met and been friends with some of the most incredible women that weren't in my life before this. So I've lost and I've gained so much more. But we're so obsessed sometimes with the loss that we don't open up to what we can gain.
And this is also another little tidbit of the importance of mourning those losses and really sitting with that pain, because there was expectations of those relationships and how those looked, and mourning those and letting them go and going through that grief process, that's an important part of just
course,
self.
you've got to honor your self-experience.
Growth, and your emotions.
So next time you want to pull out the color blindness card, right, this idea that color doesn't exist, I just want you to remember that that's actually biologically and culturally impossible, that the odds are that you would be, if you were honestly asked, would you change lives with a woman of color? Would you choose to be a Black woman in this country? Odds are, if you're honest, you would say no. And the fact that you would say no tells us so much about what you know to be true about whiteness in this country. Let's elevate our spiritual understanding of oneness to the level that makes a difference by honoring and believing other people's lived experiences. And checking our white privilege is the best thing that we can do. Not diversifying and sprinkling in, but the radical inner work and outer work of integrity and love, justice, true radical love and justice.
And look, all this self-care that everybody's doing.
Yeah.
Well, this originally came from
Women of color.
Caring for themselves so that they could continue to go out into the front lines.
The front lines, by the way, demanding that white women see them.
Yeah.
Right? Let's be real here.
So let's just remember that. And so if you want to continue to care for yourself, ask yourself why. Why you're caring for yourself in that in these ways. Always asking why. That's the work.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. We could keep going. We probably will do many, many variations of this in the future. Because intersectional feminism is a value that Reclaim the podcast upholds. And so I think this is this is in alignment
Well,
with...
and also, not for nothing, we are both white women.
Yes,
and
we are.
This is part of our work to do.
Yes.
Is to, share our experience of waking up to this so other white women can learn. Because it's not the work. It's not anybody else's work but our own.
Yeah, we got to clean up our own shit.
Yeah.
This is our way of cleaning up the shit.
This is part of keeping your side of the street clean, when like in recovery programs, they talk about that. Like how are you going to keep your side of the street clean? This is part of it.
Yeah. And listen, if you're listening to this and you're having a lot of emotional stuff come up and you need some support, reach out. Lindsey and I are easily accessible online. Lean on us.
Well, we're letting you know that there's lots of available resources.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's helpful to turn to, a coach who's a few steps ahead, who's been doing the work for a little bit longer, because they're still super in touch with where you are. So they can have a lot of compassion for your fragility, because it's part of the process. So
the question I'm going to leave you all with is, what are you willing to die to become a better human? What inside of you are you willing to release and let go and die, ego death, in order for you to step into your greatest version of yourself? And are you going to stay silent, or are you going to speak up?
Can I add a question?
Yeah.
How can you cultivate more emotional strength to truly get uncomfortable and sit in those uncomfortable emotions long enough to learn from them?
Great question. I love that question. All right. We're out of here.
There we go. Till next time.
I have a Patreon. Go give me money. Peace out, Girl Scout.